Hi, and welcome back again. So today I'm going to go on with the third part of the 5 processes that are associated with resilience or increasing our mental strength. So today I'm going to talk about recovery. So recovery takes place when we're put in a situation where stress or we have pressure applied to us that breaches our internal and external capacity to tolerate that level of stress or pressure that we're under. So once our capacity has been breached, then we're forced into a change, or we have to change some of our function so that we can handle or operate under that level of stress. And then once that stress is decreased, or we find a solution for the problem or the situation that we're in, then we look to return to normal function. However, when we return to our normal function, it may look or feel similar to our previous level of function, but there's been some changes that have taken place as a result of adaptation to that stress. So during the period of recovery post-stress, this is where we see our adaptations occur so that the next time a similar or a relevant stress or situational challenge comes along, we're better equipped to deal with it. So we will have increased our capacity to handle that stress or that level of challenge. We'll have increased the mental skills that we've had. We've increased the understanding that we have of how to solve that problem. We'll increase our level of experiential knowledge based on that threat or that situation so that we can identify it earlier, we understand the solutions, and we can handle it quicker without going through the same change. But it'll only happen as long as we have that period of recovery. So we need to understand that stress or challenge or adversity is good for us when we have recovery on the other side of it. Without that period of recovery, then the load of that stress will continue to go up, and that can create long-term disruption that we may or may not recover from effectively. So we need to make sure that we've got these periods of recovery. And this is where things like when we go home, making sure that we've allowed enough space to recover from our work stress. Like I've said before, don't continue to ruminate over the stresses from your day or start to worry about things that might be happening the next day or coming up. We need to make sure that we've got these spaces where we can recover. So that may be having a third thing or another hobby. It may be going and doing something you enjoy. It may be disconnecting from information that's coming in. It could be any number of strategies that we use. We just need to make sure we have this recovery, and like I sort of have spoken about previously as well, sleep is our biggest form of recovery. So if we're not getting that sleep, we're not going to recover. So once you can understand this, you can start to realize how important it is to actually allow yourself to be exposed to reasonable and appropriate challenges, situations, stress, these sort of things, rather than trying to avoid them, because these are the experiences that we need, or these are the stimuluses that we need to create the required process of adaptation, or to allow ourselves to adapt and grow. If we don't expose ourselves to the relevant amount of stress and then have the right amount of recovery or appropriate recovery, then we're not going to evolve, we're not going to adapt, and we can go into this sort of cycle of maladaptation if we're never exposing ourselves to a relevant amount of stress or an appropriate amount of stress, and we start to deteriorate, and that creates its own problems. So a lot of problems that people have is that they've allowed themselves to get to a point where any level of trivial challenge or discomfort has now become too much and has breached their capacity. So that's creating this change, and because they're going through long-term change, they've become maladaptive, okay? And that's going to have a lot of long-term chronic issues that, if they don't sort out, or if you don't sort out, are going to have long-term detrimental effects to you. So I've sort of spoken about these things in the military context, and yes, as a young soldier, I was exposed to situations where I actually didn't realize that I would be capable of doing what I needed to do. And then through having the external resources, once I breached my internal capacity to deal with that problem, or find a solution to that problem, the external resources, which would be other people that were around me, having mentors, having the right kind of leaders, would come and demonstrate to me or the process involved with solving that problem, or demonstrate the level of mental strength and physical work that we would go to solve these problems. It became evident to me what the solutions looked like, and I could see and understand the level of work required. And then from there, I would go into a period of rest or recovery, or I'd be allowed an adequate space to rejuvenate and adapt. And next time we had a similar problem set, I understood what was required of me, understood the level of commitment, okay, what I needed to do to solve that problem. And going through this over a long extended period, I was able to develop high levels of mental strength or resilience, or an understanding of just what I was capable of, and the level of tasks or the level of sort of complexity and difficulty and physical requirements to overcome some of these challenges that we were going to be faced with. And this has served me quite well, leaving that environment now where I'm off doing a lot of my own things. But it's not isolated to military environments. Yes, they're very demanding and you get a very good understanding of what people are really capable of. But the same processes go on whether you're within a sporting environment where each week you're challenged, in training you're challenged, and then you're given the appropriate amount of space to adapt. So you need to understand that the challenge and the stress and the complexity is what you need to get the adaptation. So when you're under high levels of pressure or in a very competitive environment, you understand and you have the ability to maintain your function without being forced into change. Because if you're forced into change, then you have to respond to the stress that's around you, or your function is going to become suboptimal. It's the same within an executive environment, whether we're working in an occupational space, whether we're in emergency medicine or emergency response. Okay, any environment that we're in, the level of threat, challenge, adversity is going to be contextual to that environment, and the same process takes place. So if we allow ourselves to approach these with a level of curiosity and understanding that the stress and the challenge is going to provide the stimulus that we need to adapt, as long as we have the recovery, then we can make sure we're not avoiding uncomfortable situations. We can make sure that we have the appropriate level of recovery and we can allow ourselves to adapt and grow. So without that stress and without the recovery that we need, we're never going to grow to our full potential. So I need to make sure that if you are having problems with your resilience or your mental strength, or you think you need to increase the amount of discomfort that you can tolerate, then one of the things you need to look at is making sure that you have the suitable amount of recovery. Okay, if you don't have recovery, then you need to make sure that you're not overexposing yourself to these stresses, these challenges. If you don't have an option around how much that you're confronted to or exposed to, then you need to start looking at what you can change within your lifestyle, within your behaviours, to make sure that you're getting the appropriate amount of rest and recovery. And the rest and recovery that you need is going to be relative to the amount of stress or adversity that you're under, for both the intensity of it and the duration of it. So if you can make sure that you're getting the appropriate amount of recovery, then you'll find that you can rejuvenate, you can recover, you'll adapt to these stresses, and next time you come across a similar challenge or threat, or you're in that level of discomfort, you'll find that you'll be better able to cope. Your capacity will have increased for the amount of stress that you can take on, skills that you have to solve it, your mental approach will change, your attitude will have changed, and you'll be able to move through some of these problems a lot easier than what you did before. So I hope that helps you understand another principle around the 5 processes of resilience, okay, making sure that you get the right amount of recovery. So as always, I look forward to the next time, and I hope that gives you something to take away.